Hi there, and thanks very much for tuning into the Explaining History YouTube channel. And if you're watching this, it's probably because you're doing something on 19th century Russia. And the reason I created this video is because one of the demographics in 19th century Russia that gets very much overlooked and ignored is the middle classes, the emergent 19th century bourgeoisie, which admittedly is very small in 19th century Russia, but not unimportant. Now, in most essays that students write, they'll tend to mention the development of the working class, the situation that the peasants were in after 1861 and emancipation, but they won't talk very much about the middle classes. And yet, if you think about it, the middle classes are hugely important. They are the guiding forces behind the Zemstvo. There are some progressive aristocrats in there as well, but there are an awful lot of middle class people. And also the revolutionary intelligentsia come predominantly from the middle classes. Now, the middle classes aren't quite the same as the British middle classes of the 19th century, who were generated by Britain's Industrial Revolution. They were the bankers and the industrialists and the financiers and the lawyers that arranged all the deals, and they were the product of industrialization. A lot of the middle classes in Russia in the 19th century, I mean, there is some industrialization, but it really is very late in the day. But a lot of them are the product of the state bureaucracy. If you imagine, Lenin's father was a school inspector for Simbirsk in eastern Russia, and they were to some extent minor nobility, but really they are bourgeois people, and and they're not really the products of private capital particularly. So a great many of the middle classes were reliant on there being future opportunities within the sphere of the Tsar's government. Unfortunately for them, since 1861, since the emancipation, the returns that the upper class has got from land ownership declined, because you haven't got unpaid labour anymore. You have to, even if you don't pay them very much, you've got to pay them something. Many of them were heavily in debt. There was terrific problems with gambling debts amongst dissolute aristocrats, and also they found themselves having to borrow for the upkeep of their land. So what is a clever aristocrat to do? Well, you go and get yourself a job in the employ of the Tsar. And so upon leaving university, you have generations of educated middle class men and women who have responded to Alexander II's educational reforms. And during the era of Alexander III and Nicholas II, they find that there's nothing for them to do. There are few opportunities. And the dislike that both Alexander III and Nicholas II had for the bourgeoisie, they viewed them as really a nuisance and a kind of un-Russian aberration. The sorts of people that really ideally don't fit into their worldview of what Russia is and what the Russian class system is and is about and should be about. Well, these people are very much alienated from the system, and unsurprisingly join various revolutionary parties. Admittedly, only a small number of them, but some join various revolutionary parties dedicated to destroying the Tsarist system. And this explains why it is the revolutionary parties obviously aren't made up of peasants. Very rarely are they made up of workers. Mainly, they are made up of the Russian bourgeoisie. And if without knowing this backstory, you'd ask yourself the question, well, why would the bourgeoisie turn against a system that benefited them? Well, the answer is many young bourgeoisie didn't see that system. They didn't see it as benefiting them whatsoever. They saw a system that punished the educated, that was backward and repressive, and certainly punished the poor as well. There was a great sense of social obligation amongst the middle classes. If you look at the workings of the Zemstvo during the Volga famine, of 1892. It's the Zemstvo that really pull out the stops to do something for the peasants, because they have a sense that really they should be doing everything. They are the fortunate ones and should be doing everything they can for the peasantry. And from this, a new sense of nationhood emerges, a new sense of what we would call civil society emerges. That the middle classes, people with education, skills, knowledge, and a bit of drive and know how, can do for Russia what it is the regime can't. And so you get the middle classes developing their own sense of nationhood and national identity from the 1890s onwards, and a new sense of civic patriotism emerging, which the aristocracy and the autocracy have no conception of understanding. Anyway, I hope you found that useful. I'm going to be doing a bunch more stuff on Russia, and we'll be moving on to Nicholas II fairly shortly. Thanks very much. Bye bye.